Okay, Matt Pressman here from Florida Tennis Magazine. I'm very excited to say I have a very established, high-ranking senior tennis player in our space here at this biohacking convention, Biohackers World. Philipp, his last name's a little difficult to pronounce, so I'm going to make sure I get it right. You want to take a stab at it so I don't screw it up at the beginning of the interview?
Von Holtzendorff-Fehling.
Okay, luckily I did that. I asked. But Philipp and I have had a good conversation prior to this, talking a little about senior tennis here in Florida and just nationally. So we have a lot to discuss in a short period of time for this interview, but I wanted to first start with how you got involved in tennis. Where did you get started playing the sport?
In Germany, that's where I grew up. I actually grew up on red clay, how I always say, at least in the summertime, and then in the wintertime we played on carpet usually, which can be slow, but it's usually fast.
Okay.
So it's very interesting. Two very different surfaces. And I was 6 years old, and I played a lot. I played a lot until I was 17, 18.
Okay.
And then I got injured, and I didn't play for 7 weeks, and that ended up being 14 years of not playing. So I didn't play in college at all and didn't feel like it also, to be honest. There was nothing that actually drew me back into tennis. And then at some point, really, I just played a little bit here and there then after those 14 years. And then at some point in 2004, I really got back into it. 2004, 2005. Well, actually 2005 more, I think. And now I play quite a lot when I don't travel.
And you, at one point, you were ranked number one, correct, in the 50 plus or the
I
top
am currently.
Currently ranked number one.
Wow,
congratulations! That is an incredible achievement. Playing a few senior tournaments, I can tell you that's amazing. So you're doing great, obviously. And the most amazing part for those who don't know is that Philipp's had a really amazing career as well in marketing. So to be able to go as a junior tennis player, playing a lot in your youth, then taking a break, and then getting so seriously into marketing, and was it Deutsche Telekom and T-Mobile, right? Which is who you were involved with for a while?
Yeah, so I was a vice president at T-Mobile, responsible for 14 countries in Europe. It was, different type of stuff. Marketing was just one aspect of it.
Okay.
And then later on also at T-Mobile US.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then you moved into media, which is my world here. So you were at the Dallas Morning News, I guess, for a little while. And
that was an interesting short period, only 3 months, because I was actually about to get hired into the board of a multi-billion-dollar company in Memphis, where I lived with my family at the time. Now, their CEO at the time of the group got replaced right during the search process. They literally wanted to send me the contract, then the CEO got replaced, and they said, we need to put everything on hold. And at the same time, I had this offer from the Dallas Morning News, from Jim Maroney, the owner of the Dallas Morning News at the time. Best boss I've ever had, to be honest. Super nice guy. But then after, I think, a month and a half, me being at the Dallas Morning News, or 2 months in, they called me up from this other company and said, okay, so now the CEO is in, and he looked at everything, and he looked at your files, and he really wants you. And I'm like, oh my God, how can you do that to me? Because I love working for Jim and all of that. But I said, because my family was there, the kids in school in Memphis, I said, Jim, look, with tears in my eyes, honestly, I'm so sorry, but I have to take this other offer. And that's when I went back, to Memphis.
Okay, gotcha. to T-Mobile, I guess, right?
No, that was not. T-Mobile was already over.
Okay, T-Mobile was already over.
Yeah.
Okay. So the amazing thing for me, just always to learn more about is so you were a junior player. You had this amazing ability to move up the corporate ladder in the corporate world, and then at some point in this sort of journey, you got back into tennis. So tell me about how that all came together.
Yeah, well, I got older and we moved a lot, and I realized, wow, it's actually when I play tennis, then it's quite easy to meet new people again in a new city. And And then as I got back into it, I noticed, well, I can still do it. It took me a little bit, but I could still do it. And I had a lot of fun and joy to do it. And that's how it happened. And then every time we moved, and we moved quite a bit as a family, also from Germany then to the US, right? Each time I started playing tennis, and we looked for some players and all that. We joined a few clubs here and there, depending on where we were. And that's how that happened. And I ended up playing the nationals once, the National Clay Court Tournament once.
Here in Fort Lauderdale, when it was?
That was in Fort Lauderdale. I don't know, it was like 10 years ago or something like that. That was the only tournament I played in the age group ever that time. Made it to the top 8.
Okay.
Which was a great result, actually. I didn't expect that to happen at the time. And then I ended up not playing again for a while, tournaments, and I stopped playing for 2.5 years, just until last September. So September of 2023, last year, September. And then it was like, okay, so next year I turn 50, and I want to play the nationals again. And then I separated from my wife in February of this year. And I'm like, okay, so what am I gonna do? You know, this is always a hard transition, obviously, even though we're good friends, and she's also here, but it's, you know, some people turn to alcohol or whatever, and I turned to playing more tennis. I was like, hey, I always wanted to play more tennis and some tournaments. Now I have the time to do it, and no one is telling me no. And so I did it. I started in March, playing the first 50s tournament, and relatively quickly now made it to the number 1.
Unbelievable.
And I intend to stay number 1 at least until the end of the year, and then we'll see how long I even want to do it. But
so great. I mean, incredible. And I'm telling you, senior tennis, it's competitive. There's a lot of ex-college players, there's some ex-pro players, some amazing juniors that kind of make the comeback sort of like you did. And to be able to get to number 1 means you are a serious player. So I'm super excited for you to kind of reveal some of the things that you did to be able to go from sort of 14 years off, sort of getting involved with the sport, then kind of sporadically getting out of it and getting back into it. What is the secret recipe that got you suddenly to propel yourself to number 1?
Well, I would say it's definitely the mix of biohacking tools that I'm using, including our own technology that we developed. That is definitely the key ingredient to that. And obviously you need, some level of talent. You need to work hard and have some discipline and all of that. But most everybody tries to do that, right? But really healthy living on one hand, and then leveraging some of these amazing technologies, I think is something what not everyone is doing. I see a lot of players eat unhealthy and all of that.
That leads us to obviously your new thing. So moving up the corporate ladder, a big company like Deutsche Telekom, T-Mobile. I mean, this is amazing. My background was also in marketing and running an agency in New York, and so I realized the weight of that job. That's a heavy duty, serious job. Then becoming an entrepreneur with your own company in the biohacking space. Tell us a little bit about your company, about your product line, and especially let's kind of really gear it in towards the Florida tennis crowd. How can this help athletes and tennis players in particular?
We developed a technology that can imprint pure natural quantum energy into any object. And with that, it can be leveraged for any physiological organism, for a plant, for animals, and for humans, of course, including tennis players. And we can combine this quantum energy, which is the lowest level or highest level, you could say, of energy of our existence, basically. You have a quantum field in every cell, for example. Right. It's the same energy we're talking about. And every frequency that exists within the quantum field. And we can combine this quantum energy, which acts like a carrier wave, with specific frequencies, which we then call frequency medicine. So we can have a healing activating frequency, for example, and place it on top of this quantum carrier wave and feed it to you.
Okay.
And different mechanisms. And then you react to that because you get this signal, this information in your biofield, and then you react, because we're all energy and frequency, and we have a physical body, but we react to frequencies, right? And for example, when I play competition now, maybe other people that will start using this now, but and I won't be number one anymore then, but
you're giving away your secrets. Okay.
So we have developed we have products, and then we have a remote service. It's called Quantum Upgrade. That it's most people that are very brain focused, they don't get it, but you don't have to get it in order for it to work, if that makes sense. So it works via quantum entanglement, and you don't even have to wear a physical product, and you are in the field, and you can book in specific frequencies. For example, during a competition or a tennis match, you can book in the so-called Olympic performance frequency, which we developed.
Cool.
And it basically triggers your cells to work at optimal performance. It further increases ATP production and things like that. But the general quantum energy that our products provide, the blocks, for example, but also the service, they boost ATP production as well. What does that mean? That's the energy that the mitochondria in the cells produce.
Right.
And that is increased, basically completely non-invasive by a press of a button. And then on top of that, your blood improves also, and your cell recovery. So it's been shown in placebo-controlled, randomized, double-blind studies to increase ATP production, to accelerate wound healing of human cells by 50 to 100%. So what that means in translation, if you twist your ankle, and usually it takes, 8 weeks to heal, now you could do it in 4 to 6 weeks. Right? If you have, some open wound because you fell on a clay court, and usually it would take 2 weeks for it to be gone, you can do it in a week to 10 days, right? So it's vastly accelerated.
Now I see you're wearing wearing one of your products right now?
Yes, correct.
Yes, very cool. It's very cool actually to see it in person. So, and I know you have wearable products, and you also have sort of very cool, almost looks like really cool art that you have that you can put into your own home.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the product line and what tennis player, because every tennis player said, well, we got to number one, I need some of these products. So what kind of products do you have, and what would you recommend for tennis players in terms of your whole product line?
Yeah, so in terms of the Leela Quantum products, this is a really good starter product. I call it the all-rounder. It's the Heal 360 capsule. That's how we call it. It stimulates healing on all levels, energetic, emotional, and physical. And you can feel it. It also neutralizes the negative effects of EMFs, which are actually quite important to neutralize if you can, because they have a detrimental effect.
That's electromagnetic frequency, right?
Correct. Okay. Yeah, like 5G, 4G, Wi-Fi, any microwaves, for example.
Okay.
And then several others that we don't hear about so much. And yeah, that's what it all does. And it's not very expensive, and it lasts forever. So you don't ever have to recharge it or buy a new one or something. It just lasts. So that's a good one to start. The ultimate, it's called the Heal 360 capsule. And then the ultimate product for a home or even an office space would be one of our blocks. So those are price point wise a little higher. They're cheap for what they do, extremely cheap for what they do, but they, not everyone can just say, okay, well, I'll just get one, right? So here's the range, 888 to maybe 1,750. That's the range of the different types of blocks.
Like different sizes.
Yeah, exactly. And what that does, you put it in your home, and even if you don't ever use it, it basically harmonizes your whole space in regards to electromagnetic fields and any other frequencies that are detrimental to the body. That's just a nice side effect. It just does always, all the time, without you having to do anything.
So researching your company and you was really interesting and fascinating. And one of the things I was connecting the dots, let's say, being a senior executive so high up at T-Mobile at a cell phone company, there are EMFs involved, I'm sure, with cell phones, with computers, with wireless signals. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, do you have Did some of the information or understanding of EMFs that you got in that industry help you develop this really cool product?
It helps me now, and at that time, I must say, I wish we had talked about it more, about the electromagnetic fields. I now know why that's the case. It's still not even now a huge topic in the industry because, of course, the industry has no interest in even talking about it. As a matter of fact, the industry has been trying to fund research that shows that electromagnetic frequencies have no health impact, and that's flat out wrong. And it's a lie because they already show within minutes detrimental effects on the human body, which you can measure in the blood. You can measure if you look at your autonomic nervous system, it has impacts. And then, you have midterm effects as well. And then we get into, brain, we get into cancer issues and stuff like that. But I think it's very important to not be in the camp of just talking it all bad and just talking about the negative and say, okay, let's tear down all the 5G towers. That's never going to happen anyway. And also there's a lot of convenience that comes with it. So I find myself having a relatively good overview of the benefits of it. And also I understand the industry. Most of the people in this industry, they're not out there to provide negative EMFs.
Of course.
They want to provide convenience and, make you be connected with your friends or family overseas and all of that. But we should be a little bit more aware of the issues and then figure out how we can deal with them and mitigate them. And the good news is there are solutions that don't mean we have to tear down 5G towers because we developed one that doesn't mean we have to shield ourselves or wear tinfoil hats. We can do it all without any negative impact. And I think if we can get to that understanding, then the technology can coexist in a better way.
And I would think nowadays it's people having so much screen time on their phones so much, on their computers all the time, wireless signals everywhere, 5G towers. But just in general, man, screen time is become like so dominant in people's lives. And that's why I think tennis is so important. It's an opportunity to get off your screens and actually get outside and play. But when you go back to your normal life, you're constantly exposed to these frequencies. And it's wonderful you have a product line that can help, ameliorate the impact of some of those issues that we're dealing with.
Yeah, correct. And we have over 48 placebo-controlled trials that were done.
Wow.
And most of those actually also looked either exclusively or as an additional aspect looked at electromagnetic fields. And so far it's been shown to mitigate 100% of the negative effects, literally, and in various different testing methods. So it's quite powerful. And if you truly understand what the ramifications are of being exposed to this radiation without helping yourself, then you understand how good it is if you can mitigate that because you take burden off your body.
Wow.
And then you can leverage that, for even better performance, right?
As an athlete. Yeah, of course. Well, now we have the secret trick. You're going to have some serious competition coming your way. That you've given away your product line and some of the ways that you can really defend against the EMFs and all the other kind of issues that you're dealing with, with today's world, with so much screen time and just the technology that's moved ahead so quickly. And they're a company like yours that's providing a service for people to help kind of block some of that is really wonderful. So it's great that you've gotten involved with that as an entrepreneur. And then I wanted to ask you some other questions about recovery. It is interesting reading more. You also do quite a bit of yoga, right? And so tell me about how, and we've heard that Djokovic and some other players out there have really gotten into yoga, which is sort of a non-traditional approach, let's say, for some athletes. Have you found that effective? And what other things do you do to really help, level up your tennis game?
Yep. So my number one advice is that, and I give that to everyone, whether a tennis player or not, is, you brush your teeth in the morning, you take a shower in the morning, then you do some exercise maybe, and you take some supplements to take care of your health, right? Start with your biofields. we ignore our biofield. We have biofields, or we actually are biofields, and we just take care of the physical. If we started to also take care more of our biofields, we add something positive to the most important aspect of our existence. And yoga does that, for example. Breathwork does that. Djokovic is really big with conscious breathing. He would tell you that's the number one thing for him, actually, that changed things for him, is that he started consciously breathing. And that is something because it gets you into the here and now, into feeling yourself, into feeling your energy. And when you're very tuned in, also on the tennis court, you can pull in your maximum potential. And that is what I suggest to do. And then there's multiple practices. You can do a little meditation, you can do breathwork, you can do various yoga techniques, you could do Tai Chi. There's so much out there that's basically for free that everyone can do to take care a little bit of the biofield. And then it can translate certainly also into more mental strength and physical strength as well as nice side effects.
Okay, we only have 5 minutes left, but I'm going to ask some questions that are probably going to be more pointed because I really want to get into what you do. So I'm very curious. So of all these things, what does your training look like, and what does your recovery look like to become a number one tennis player in your age category?
Yeah. So first of all, before I do these things, I do some of those things anyway, but to be something, I set a goal, and my goal was to be in the top 10 in the nation this year. That was my goal. Now I overachieved a little bit, so that's number one, which is nice. But I have another goal, and that goal is to be nominated by the USTA for the next World Championships in Portugal on red clay, where I grew up, basically, for the Team World Championships, right? So that's what I'm currently trying to do. I don't know anyone really at the USTA. But that's really my dream, to play there and represent the US. And then I see how can I get there? How can I get into best shape in order to make that happen? And in terms of the biohacking, bioenergy hacking tools, so regular day for me in Winter Park, if I'm there and not traveling, is I get up and I try to do a little bit of yoga and some other stretching that helps my quads, for example, for tennis specifically geared. I use a full spectrum infrared sauna, which is quite amazing because it also helps with ATP production, with recovery, and you sweat on one hand, but you have the red light, which is so important to the human cells. I use that. I use vibration plates. In this case, the company's called Power Plates, but there's multiple out there. There's no one specific that's now so much better than others.
You mentioned breathwork. Do you do Wim Hof breathing, or is there a specific protocol you use for breathwork?
I do Kundalini yoga, and Kundalini yoga, and I'm actually a certified Kundalini yoga teacher. I don't really teach because I don't have the time for it, and I never wanted to be really someone that teaches all the time. But sometimes I love to do it also at conferences every now and then, or bigger events. And as part of that, you have a lot of breath work. They call it pranayama in the yoga tradition. And it could be different types of breathing. And one breath that's similar to the Wim Hof method is the so-called breath of fire. It's just not through the nose, it's through the mouth, it's through the nose. And then there's various others. So breathing is very powerful, and just 2 minutes of specific breathing can lift up your day and change things for sure. That's definitely part of it. I use our technology, obviously, and healthy living in general, walking my dog, eating good and drinking good water. I don't drink sodas. I just don't. If I drink something like that, it would be maybe a ginger beer or something like that. And I can drink a Coke or something, but I never really have the desire, and it's just something I really cut out of my diet.
That makes sense. Well, thanks for so many great tips and tricks. The easiest thing is just to check out your company, Leela Quantum Tech, and some of these other practices in terms of training, recovery, can help, especially senior tennis players, really level up. What else would you leave our audience? Florida is kind of the crown jewel of American tennis, as you know, and this is just so much tennis in the state, so much great tennis a lot of great tennis players. What would you leave our crowd with? Just, maybe one or two other things that you'd recommend in terms of really being able to achieve what you've achieved.
Well, think about your health really also long term and start today. And it's not about just doing a whole lot right away. It's just more the consistency of it. And you can do unhealthy things in between. That's totally okay, right? But as long as you stick with generally your healthy attitude and figuring out what really works for your body. And I would also say, be very mindful about, some of those healthcare things out there that, are supposed to work, and rather turn to the maybe non-traditional new ways of taking care of your body and see how you react and how you feel with it. Because there's tons of stuff out there. I don't think your doctor tells you about red light therapy, but right. I tell you, after 15 minutes in a red light sauna or on a red light mat, you feel the difference already.
Yeah, I love red light.
And all of those things just make us feel better.
That's wonderful. Well, for our crowd, if you want to learn more about Philipp and Leela Quantum Tech, you definitely should check out both the website for the products and also the social media channels, which I went through. Saw some of you playing tennis and see how much you love tennis. I mean, you could tell you really love the sport, which is so cool. It's really neat at a biohacking conference to see another tennis player. It's pretty amazing. So
yes, and I want to say one last thing, and that's the fact that the tennis players already playing tennis is already amazing for your health, because a study with 90,000 people has found that actually everybody that plays tennis lives 9 years longer on average than everybody else. Yeah. And I think that's, for most racket sports, that's the case, but tennis, I think, is the number one in that. So that's already great.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. I mean, it's like I always tell people, like, if you're looking to live longer, probably one of the best things you can do is just play tennis. It's better than any sport, according to that study from the USTA. And that's a pretty big sample size too, so it's pretty amazing. But thank you, Philipp, for taking the time to sit with us and tell us a little bit about your story, your product line, which is amazing. I'm definitely going to check it out after this. And so if you want to learn more about them, please, I'll leave some stuff in the show notes. But yeah, for sure, check out Leela Quantum Tech, and thanks so much for everything.
Thank you. That was great.
Awesome.
Unlock your full potential at the Biohackers World Conference and Expo in Los Angeles on March 29th and 30th. Connect with leaders in health optimization, learn the secrets to longevity, boost your performance, and dive into the latest biohacking and wellness innovations. Don't miss out. Tickets are going fast.